Hello and welcome to the TT Podcast, the podcast where we talk to one person from the world of the TT to talk about their lives, their journeys and their ambitions with the greatest motorsporting event in the world. And we've got a special guest, but first we need to preface it by where we are, because clearly we're not in the studio in Manchester, and you might even be able to hear the bikes up on Glen Crutchley Road right now. It's currently the Manx GP and we're in a lovely little homestay, I think they call it.
Palace.
Shh. Don't spoil it, because I want to build it all up. In a lovely little homestay, literally just 200 yards from the paddock. But unfortunately, because we're here, it means we're missing one of the most integral parts of the TT podcast, Steve Plater. Unfortunately, he's away on holiday. He's got British Superbike duties, which means I do have a brand new co-host. And rather than just get the co-host in and go on with the podcast, we thought we'd take 20 minutes, 30 minutes to have a chat with him. You might know him as the annoying one, the little one, the wee one, the gobshite. We all know him as the wonderful Lee Johnston. Hello, Lee.
The awesomeness.
The awesomeness, whatever.
I'll take them all as a compliment.
So for the next couple of podcasts, you are now going to be my co-host. How do you feel about that?
Bit nervous, really, because it's obviously Steve is unbelievably good at his job.
He carries me.
Whatever that job may be. No, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, it's no surprise to anyone. I do like talking as well, so it sort of comes pretty natural. Not as natural as yourself, to be honest, but
it's weird because, you know, we sit down and we chat and we chat and we chat and you won't shut up, but then the camera starts and you're a bit more relax, man. Relax.
You know, it's hard to not say rude things at you when some people are probably nervous, but my nerves are for a different reason.
Right, well, we've got plenty of guests coming up over the course of the next few weeks, but let's get an update on Lee Johnston, because you technically were the first ever podcast guest.
Yeah, but be honest.
Back in the day.
Be honest. So you mean recorded me first?
The first recorded.
But I wasn't a big enough name to go out first. Who went out first?
It wasn't that.
Stop lying on camera.
I think it was McGuinness.
Oh,
No, honestly.
What's he ever done?
It was. It was. We're just checking. The producer's just checking out.
So you don't even know who the first show was?
Listen, we recorded 4.
Bet Steve knows.
We recorded 4 on the bounce. Michael Rutter, Davey Todd, John McGuinness, Peter Higman. And I can't remember which one went out first. I'll tell you right now, it was John McGuinness.
Would you like the order?
Yeah.
Peter Hickman. Oh, this is no reflection on you.
It was number 5. I remember it was number 5.
Peter Hickman, John McGuinness, Michael Rutter, Davey Todd, and then eventually Lee Johnson.
Yeah. So Peter Hickman was the first.
I quit.
But you were the first ever recording. But don't forget, I wasn't in the studio because they won't let me in because I had COVID. You couldn't
even be bothered to come to the show. You were sitting at home.
No, I drove all the way. And
you were at everyone else's show.
On the way to the studio, I phoned up and I just said, listen.
Facts are facts.
I'm suffering from a few symptoms. I don't think I've got it.
Workitis.
And then all of it. Anyway, whatever. We've been through the tap on the shoulder. We've been through your career. People can go back and listen to that. But
not a lot happened, to be fair.
Not a great deal. But what's happened in the past couple of months? There's been a fair amount going on.
Well, there was a fair amount going on for about a week that I didn't even
know anything about
see anything about. And then for the next bit, there was not a lot fit to be going on. So,
but I tell you what, before we talk about that, go back to 2022 TT, because that was not. It wasn't great, was it? Not that I want this to be a whole sob story.
This is like that.
But we've not been for however many years, and you finally get back, and then you have these issues. With your eyes.
I said to someone, that's not even probably on the first 40 odd pages in the excuse book, like that your eyes aren't working. Yeah. There's a lot of things you can blame before that, and I think the most frustrating part for me is if you've got we've had people on, obviously, and everyone's rid with injuries or had injuries, or if you've a sort of collarbone or a shoulder, shoulder's probably quite a big one, but arm or leg, whatever, your eyes are pretty important, I've figured out.
And what was the problem? What was happening?
So basically I have a long-term blood condition like AS, and it was the stress or whatever that I got diagnosed after. That is a part of it, like a flare up part. That,
like a symptom of it.
Yeah, they're quite a common symptom, but this obviously stress and eating and all these other things are an effect. But at the time, I just thought it was what do you call it when
Like
you're
an
allergic?
allergy?
Yeah. So I went to the hospital and they give me allergy tests. So I was taking them flat out, but obviously I couldn't take the drowsy one, so it was like the strongest version of a non-drowsy one. So I was doing all that, and I thought, oh, maybe that's getting better. And yeah, I figured out then it wasn't. So
how does that make you feel halfway through the TT?
You're
fit
time,
enough.
well, I think you can see it in the
yeah.
documentary. Do you know what I mean? And it was hard actually to watch after, if I'm totally honest, because I know I run the team. I help run the team. I see all the work that goes in. I know all the work that goes in with the sponsors and the team and the mechanics and organising everything. And we were literally sat there, and it's like, I can't see. It's like you can't go to the physio. You can't do anything. And it's just like, I felt useless. Do you know what I mean? It's like all that. It sat there, and like, to be fair, we're all very close. My whole team's close. My boss is close, and I said I wanted to just make sure, sort of thing, and they made me promise that I wouldn't go out and stay out for 4 laps or 6 laps, whatever the superstock rate was. And I knew within the sort of first 4 or 5 miles, you know what I mean? It was like I had to really like double take to see things, and I'd tip in, and it was very frustrating.
How long from the moment you realised when you realised, right, I can't do this, to actually stopping though?
Yeah, I just came in on that lap. Yeah,
Did you?
Just come in. Yeah, it was hard. Yeah, it upsets me now to talk. You know, because like we get it once a year. Like we spoke about, like Olympians must be horrendous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once a year, and you really only have your prime for a limited. Well, I say have your prime. It's the best part of your career is only a small part as well. And then we've missed stuff with COVID, and it's like I've like missed 3 years of what should be my sort of best sort of time. Well, 4 now because we've missed this year as well. So yeah, and I'm getting close to the old grey hair stage, so it's not getting any better.
But yeah, this year was, I mean, you missed it for completely different reasons.
Yeah, it wasn't the plaster wasn't fixing fixing this one.
A few paracetamol and a band-aid weren't going to fix this.
Yeah, so it obviously it happened at, well, it didn't. Oh, not obviously, it happened at the Northwest. We had quite a big crash. Did quite a lot of damage.
Don't brush over it.
I think at the start it wasn't that hard because I was that broken. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you're that broken and that vulnerable and not even mentally in a good state, you don't really think about missing it because you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You can't get out of bed. You can't go to the toilet. You can't literally. You can't do anything.
You're surviving.
Yeah,
almost. You're
you're literally chuffed to bits to be surviving. And so at the start it wasn't that bad, but then obviously by the time I got out of hospital, I got myself out of hospital, and Neil come and picked me up and took me on the ferry back to England. The TT was in full flight, like it was the second week, and I drove where the boat went round the island, and I could see like that everybody was here, and sun was shining, and Lee was sitting on his wheelchair looking off the deck of a boat. Like, so it was that was when it was really hard, you know. And it's funny now, but Neil wheeled me out in my wheelchair, and I was like sitting on the side of the boat, like looking out, and I started crying. And this old couple, they'd been over on their holidays. They were like 60-odd-year-old couple, and they must have thought, what the fuck is there a random dude sitting in a wheelchair looking at the Isle of Man crying for? And they came over to me, bless them, and they were like, you all right? And I goes, yeah, I'm fine. And they were like, you know, they just got talking, and they just told me that they'd had the best holiday ever in Ireland and stuff. And it was like, it was fine. I didn't even explain I didn't even know where to start to explain as to what was happening. But I just, after it, I laughed. I thought, what on earth much they thought this
where would
random guy sitting. There was no one. Yeah, there was nobody there with me because he'd buggered off to get a coffee or something. So I'm just sat there looking over like something off Little Britain, looking over the side, crying. Probably thought I was about to bail over. But so that was the first part of it being hard, and then sitting at home in my garden, like listening to it and watching. And so
did you? You didn't try and avoid it all. You did watch it.
I did
because the rest of the team came out, right? All the boys.
Yeah, they were working for other teams and stuff. Yeah, and I could watch bits, and then I would get really frustrated, and then I'd turn it off, and then the nosiness would want to watch more, and then so it literally that went on for a week of drive. I was so happy when it was over because it was driving me insane, to be honest. Like, or it was not insane, but it was really hard to. And the weather was amazing, and you know, it was like the best scenario for.
Mate, the TT this year was absolutely brilliant. It was.
Yeah.
The only thing that was missing was you.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I know that now, and I'm in a good mindset now to be thankful rather than. But I'm genuinely thankful to be here now and not sitting huffing like a spoiled brat that someone else is playing with my toys. Do you know what I mean? That's what it was like at the time. So, but yeah, at the start it was just I was in that bad a shape that it wasn't a problem. It was like just happy to.
And when you say you're in a bad shape, I don't know if you were just saying it, but I don't think you joke about it. Technically, you died twice.
Yeah,
while you were there.
At the track, I was lucky that there was really good medics and stuff, and obviously without there being blood on the helicopter and different things, and these highly trained people, they operated on me at the golf course, literally on the track, and they kept me alive.
But didn't you say there was someone?
Yeah, there was somebody random watching. Yeah, that was highly trained in medicine as well and stuff, and that was a big part of. There's a few things that sort of happened that luckily at a very unlucky time it sort of fell into. 100%. Yeah, and so got there, and then that happened, and then once we eventually got to the hospital and stuff, they stabilized me there, and then put me straight into a coma and stuff, and then the next day they operated, so it was like, I'm going to say 8 or 10 hours they operated on me for. I thought like the same surgeon would do the operations, but they just kept coming through the door and saying, "Oh yeah, I worked on you," and there was like 5 of them, so I don't know whether one was doing my foot, one was doing my femur, one was doing my arm, one was they're all. But I don't know if they're all doing it at the same time or how it works. I didn't have the brain capacity at the time to ask them questions, but so we were in surgery for something between 8 or 10 hours, and then I don't really have any memory. The last memory I have is actually seeing Connor Cummins. Funny enough, he was the last person I remember waving at, like leaving the pits. And I've no other memory then until 4 or 5 days later, sort of coming round out of the coma, and then eventually got my I don't know what the right word for tube, like to keep you alive. The
tube.
Breathing apparatus machine was in because my lung had collapsed because the ribs had punctured my lung, and that was sort of the first weird memory I had of like coming round, and but then you're still on that much drugs and the drugs from the operation, Evan. So in my head I'd been in hospital a week, but I was in hospital for 2 weeks because the first sort of week was like I don't remember, I was out. So so everyone around me suffered for a week while I was on holiday somewhere. So
were you conscious, like, you know, you say you can't remember it, but there are times when you come to, especially when you're in the hospital bed. Were you knocked unconscious?
At the actual accident, I was out.
Right.
I had a bang on the head, so that obviously knocked me out. And then I presume, or I spoke to the psychologist about this, and your body's obviously very clever, and it realizes that you don't need to see any of this. Do you know what I mean? And it stays switched off. Or
really,
you know, it's the same as when people are in a lot of pain and you black out or whatever. That's
your body's like,
that's your body going, this is not good and this is not what you need to see, sort of thing. So I have no memory from the Thursday midday of the crash to probably Tuesday or Wednesday the following week.
All right, so eventually you come round. At what point did the doctor break everything down and say, "Here's what you broke, mate"? And how big was that list?
It was funny. It was quite hard at the start because I remember like some. Christy Blaster was over there staying in a hotel at the time, and like you're still not really in a capacity of having a proper conversation, and some of my close friends came in to see me, and now I can remember them being there, but I have no idea what we spoke about or anything like that. And the doctors come round like first thing in the morning, and there'd be like 5 of them in, and they're bombing smart things at you that you don't know the name of anyway, and then Christy come in at like dinner time and she'd go, well, what did the doctor say? And I'd be like, I've got no idea. Do you know what I mean? I don't. So then I made a point of like getting them to come back when my mum or Christy was there or my sister was there, like to try and explain, because it's weird sense, like you feel so vulnerable because you literally can't. I was in the bed. I couldn't get up to go to the toilet. I couldn't do anything. Do you know what I mean? So I'd like, on my right side, I broke my foot. My foot was wired. I broke my femur. My femur's rodded and screwed through the joint at the top. I broke my arm. My arm hit the socket, broke the socket. My arm's plated. My arm's screwed. The socket's wired. My arm on the other side was actually broke for 2 weeks before we realised, because it was maybe not a bad thing at the time, but that was like a clean break. My ribs on this side, I don't know how many were broke, like 2 or 3, but they punctured my lung, that collapsed my lung, and then that was one of the reasons that I was in a bad way at the scene. But then obviously that filled with blood and stuff as well. I was bleeding on the inside, so we had to get a tube in through my ribs into the lung, obviously to either drain it or whatever. Or whatever they do. So it's that is the worst bit. Like somebody not, I don't think they were trying to be rude, but someone came up to me one day and was just like, oh, what was the worst bit? And I was like, I don't really know whether they were looking for something gory or anything. But I said like, when someone pulls a tube out between broken ribs out of your lung, I'm telling you now, that is not a nice feeling for anything to happen. Do you know what I mean? And your lungs obviously then full of blood, so you can't cough because your ribs are broke, but you're trying to cough up these big clots of black claret out of you to actually try and get you to breathe. And so when my little boy first come over, like they were cautious not let him to see me till I looked, like remotely well, or I could speak. So it was like another week, and the doctor, bless him, they give you this it's like a little box with some like ping pong balls in, to try and blow to like to train your lung to breathe or whatever. No, you had to suck it to get these balls to float to the top or something. But there's like, so I got this thing and I was like pulling on it and I was like, geez, this must be like really hard. And I set it down and Jesse picked it up and he goes, oh, what's this? It's like a toy. And I goes, yeah. And he literally went, and they just went boom to the top. And I was like, I'm so broken. I was like, I can't. This 5-year-old has literally breathed on this thing and it's just went to the top. And I was like,
so you're down
trying.
To one lung and
I was trying so hard to make it happen. So that at that point I was just like, holy smokes, this is not a joke. Do you know what I mean? I'm in a bit of a bad way, but the treatment I got and the doctors and stuff was amazing. Do you know what I mean? After, and I ended up in so firstly you're in like an intensive care, which I don't really remember anything of. And then you go into what is classed as like a trauma ward. So it's like people that come in really badly injured, or they're out of a really bad operation, or they're basically about to die. Do you know what I mean? And the staff and stuff in there were unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? For the way they treated you, even because you're in such a bad way mentally. Look, they'll end up, random men are sitting chatting to you at 3 a.m. because you can't sleep. Things like that. And I think people take for granted how lucky we are to have that as a free service. Do you know what I mean? Like it's mental, and that's their job. I could never get my head around the fact that like there's people dying and these women or whatever had looked after them for maybe a month or two, and you get friendly with people, and that was just a normal.
Yeah, there'll be 5 or 6, maybe 7.
Oh
8
yeah, unbelievable.
People that have come and gone.
Yeah,
since you.
Yeah.
And they've been there to look at. Yeah, that must be a burden to
carry. It's a chosen profession, I believe, to be fit to do them things.
So here's a question, going back to what you said about those little moments in the crash that actually helped to make sure that you survived. Do you believe in God? Do you believe in fate? Do you believe that?
I believe,
because you joked about it yesterday, saying like clearly God didn't want me up there yet. So
do not.
Yeah.
That was my mum said that. I believe in that, like karma, or having good morals and being good will come of it. I think people say, oh, he's a bad person and he's got all the luck, whatever, but I believe it will come round. You know what I mean? And I honestly believe everything happens for a reason. There's something, like going quite far back, I had quite a big crash. well, not a big crash, but I had a crash at the Ulster Grand Prix in 17, and I broke my collarbone. And it was absolutely devastated, and I ended up then having to stay at home. But so I spent 2 weeks at home. I got my collarbone plated and stuff, but it would just happen to be like 2 weeks before my dad died. So I spent like 2 solid weeks there doing that, and that would never have happened. Do you know what I mean?
Had you not have
yeah, so it doesn't always.
yeah.
I think I'm not religious by any means or anything, but I think there's always a period of time when you'll go, that's why that happened, or that,
Yeah.
you know, it's not very apparent now. I'm still suffering. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I'm still like, why did this have to happen to me? Or do you know what I mean? At the start of this year, it was like the best start to my year ever with leading the British Championship, and I felt like physically and mentally in a really good place. And then someone else said,
Yeah.
oh, well, because you were so physically and mentally well, that's why you've survived the crash. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, well, I don't know, but I wouldn't say, I'm not superstitious in any sense. I run number 13, do you know what I mean? I don't have this like penny down my leathers, or I don't put a left sock on before a right sock or anything. I think people joke and say if I fell in shit, I'd come out smelling the roses, you know, I'm a lucky person, but I believe that comes from having a positive attitude, or, you know, almost warrant. Like if I go to the gate, and you've seen earlier, I didn't have a pass, but if you're polite with someone,
Yeah.
and, you know, like
Yeah.
if you think that maybe you should be there,
They'll let you go.
it warrants being there. So yeah, I think so.
Do you think you'll get, again, we were talking earlier about your tattoos, and obviously they all have meaning. Will you get a tattoo at some point to almost commemorate this, to show how, not to remind yourself
Yeah.
of the accident, but to say, you know, that was the moment in time where I...
Yeah. I've actually
nearly
joked, I
went.
joked about this about a week ago with Christy. I was standing in the bedroom. This sounds bad, but looking at myself in the mirror with to try and see the shape of my shoulder and my hip, like, because it's not aligned right and stuff. And I joked, so I've got a hole under here where the tubes were, and I was just going to get a little thing saying thanks very much, because it like it saved my life. And she was like, "What on earth would you want to do?" Like this, I have a big scar underneath there, and I just thought, well, that little scar means a lot to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know how bloody sore it was to come out, and that it saved my life at the time. So yeah, we literally joked about that a
But I
week
suppose
ago.
with these scars, you don't get a choice whether you have them, but you get a choice whether you kind of
Oh yeah.
ink that area to say that's
Plus,
that's what's happened.
I could sit here now and just be bitter, and like somebody's riding my bike here, and it's beautiful and everything. But I'd rather not see it as a positive, but be lucky that I'm here. I'm still involved. I'm getting to do this. You know, it's hard some days. Yeah, it is. You know, I mean, it was really hard at the start, but I think the better I get physically, then that spurs me on mentally, and hopefully it keeps going that way.
The vlog that you put out about the accident, you showed the accident, and I think it was the first time you'd seen it or sat through and watched it. So we got your reaction. Like, how hard was it to film it? Did you think about not putting it out at all? And what do you think about the reception that you received from doing it?
I think, honestly, not so much the crash, but being honest about like how lost I was. At the time, I probably wasn't of enough mental state to understand, to be worried about doing, you know, does that make sense? So like now I would probably be more cautious, thinking, oh, I don't know what they're going to think of me. But I was that, at the time of recording it even, I was still that sort of vulnerable that I just, whatever Christy said, oh, you know, this is the right thing to do, I just went, all right then, that's it.
Yeah.
And then by the time it came out, and that I was in a better state, and honestly, like most of my vlogs go on and I'll look at the comments and try and reply to people, and I didn't watch that vlog for about a week, and then looked at the replies, and then I was like in a good enough space to really appreciate what it was actually doing for people. So I think it worked at the perfect time it came out, and how long it took me to watch the vlog and stuff. I'd seen a psychologist and stuff at that time, and that had made me figure out some things. So it all sort of happened, and then that sort of really helped me. As such, me talking about it, helping other people, actually helped me more in a sort of full circle thing straight away. So it was hard. It was definitely hard at the time, and it's still hard now even to talk about it. But some of the things I got back of genuine, what I would class as hard men, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like strong men that don't talk about them type of things, and like just sent me a private message and said, you know what, I'm going to go and see someone, and if that helps them, but that, you know what I mean? Now I feel really proud of that. I had the balls to do it in the first place, you know what I mean? Or
like you say, everything potentially happens for a reason. You can never see it at the time, but all you going through that might have never been about you.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds mental, but that might have been about that guy that sent you that message going, like, because of that, that's helped me out.
Yeah, and I think being open, like Christy's helped me a lot with this, because I would like, because you have to be hard to do this job, you know, bad things happen to people you like, and you have to put these things in a box. And the easiest way, the therapist said, he was like, Lee, you've literally, because I had a lot of things, even not I've had a wonderful childhood, but just randomly, like friends as kids died and accidents and a lot of things.
Yeah.
And he says, you've literally put all these things in this one box, and he says, this thing has happened. The box is open, and he says, it's like when you try and pack your bag the first time, everything fits in there. He says, but once the lid's open, you're not getting the things back in. So he says, you've only one option, is to take it all out, start again.
Fold it all back up.
And it was literally like, he didn't say anything really intelligent. It was like simple things, but all of a sudden I was like, why did I not just think of that? Or, do you know what I mean? And it broke it down in that sense where, I actually understand now what has happened to me. And whereas before, I genuinely thought I was going mad. I'd be sitting watching something like funny or happy, and I'd start crying. I'd be sitting watching something average, and I'd start crying, and then something sad, and the people would be going, how do you know what makes you upset? I was like, I've got no idea. Funny things are happening. And it was just like, I genuinely thought, I said to Christy, I says, I've gone to sleep and somebody else has woke up in my head. That was like because all my life was, so basically from I was 17 or started like racing properly, I was like so driven and had one mindset to do one thing, and that was it, and passionate about that. And I woke up at 34-year-old, couldn't go to the toilet, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't feed myself, couldn't drink. You were back to being 4-year-old, plus I'd been out for the count for nearly a week, so whatever drugs were in you and everything. But this all makes sense now, but at the time I was like, what is wrong with me? I was gone. And then once the therapist said, he says, well, you're everything you enjoy, whether it's cycling, swimming, running, he says, all the things that make you ride your motorbike, you can't do any of them. He says, so no wonder you're going to feel like somebody else. But before that happened, or that meeting, I was like adamant that this was it. I'd lost the plot. And then obviously since I spoke about it, loads of people that have had big operations think, that same thing happened to me. But until you figure all them bits out, you literally sit in this room in the hospital thinking that, you're literally going mad.
Getting better now though.
I think I was mad before that, though.
Yeah, everyone. That's the issue with it. Most people only see you with a smile on your face, laughing and joking. Yeah. So it's kind of like
that was the other reason I wanted to. I was really cautious of the fact nowadays there's this whole life's amazing. You know, look at Instagram, look at Twitter. No one takes a picture of when the shit hits the fan. Do you know what I mean? They don't go, took off work today. I feel like shit. I'm sitting at home. I can't get off the sofa. Yeah. Here's my life. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm on holidays. I'm out in this nightclub. I'm dressed up. I've got this on. Yeah. And it's a little bit like that in bike racing. You know, like everybody looks at us, and we're really lucky to do this. But like, he's got a great life. Oh, he's got hurt. He disappears for 6 months. He comes back. Oh, he's got a great life again. Yeah. But no one has any fucking clue of the suffer, what we caused everyone close to us. Like what my missus has gone through, and my family, my mum. Do you know what I mean? There's a reason why I don't want Jessie. You know, like I couldn't cope with what I've put them through. Not a chance. It's so selfish. I know we're so.
Especially to go through that accident and still go, I've still got unfinished business in this.
Yeah, I think that is the, and like bless Christy, the first thing she said to me, even when it was like not mentally sound, she goes, you know, if you need to go back, that's. To be fit to do that.
That's a special woman, isn't it?
Unbelievable.
To be able to say that.
Well, to put up with me in the first place, she's a special woman. But yeah, I think but that's the understanding of like people outside, you know, looking in, and I know they slate that this is a dangerous sport and everything, but nobody's got that understanding until you're on the inside and see all the suffering and stuff like that. So I'm not saying I'm gonna come back or I'm not gonna come back. I'm just gonna try and get fit to come back, and then.
But the door's not closed.
Yeah, be able. I just need to be fit to know I can do it, and then we can make a call on what actually happens.
But until then, shall we record some podcasts?
It's definitely safer than falling off motorbikes.
I don't know, mate. Some of the comments on YouTube can be very, very harsh.
Honesty's the best policy.
Right, pleasure, mate.
Pleasure was all yours.
Always. All right, so that's the first episode of this new run with my new co-host, Lee Johnston. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you leave us a rating wherever you're listening to these podcasts. So get your phone out right now, go to Spotify, go to iTunes, wherever you're listening to it, give it a rating and a review. The first episode of this new run will be out next week, where we sit down with Nathan Harrison. Here's a little clip.
I went to open my present. I was like, oh, I just got some it's actually a picture. I'll have to get the picture on Facebook. I had some overalls. They weren't no motocross gear or anything. So a bicycle helmet and a pair of trainers. So I didn't really care that much about my safety. But yeah, I was like, oh, that's all right. So I put that on thinking I was a boy. And then walked around the corner and there was a KTM 50 sat there. So I spent the rest of my birthday riding around the garden with my dad chasing after me.
Amazing. Fully auto?
Yeah, fully auto, yeah. So I did that for a few years. I think the whole neighbourhood actually come around. They all come around and had a go. It did get ghosted into the hedge at one point. Some fella thought he could do it on his own. I think it was my next door neighbour.
As I said, that first episode of this new run will be out next week. Until then, cheers, Lee.
Pleasure.